Welcome back. This is Around the Crown. We're talking all things Sacramento Kings and beyond. Join the Royal family by hitting that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, you might as well smash up that like button. So, Calvin, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but after the last loss, the Kings held a players-only meeting. What do you think about these player-only meetings? Because, I feel like they can go either way.
They can go either way. I think they're always good, whether or not they work or not. I've been involved in players-only meetings before, and even if you don't come out and change a lot from how you play on the court, there's still a lot of good things that can come out of those meetings. Mm-hmm. Number one, it's an opportunity for these guys to just vent and get their frustrations out in a safe area where the media is not around, nobody hears what's being said. So I think that that's good for any human being. It bottling stuff up and keeping it inside 9 times out of 10 is worse than letting it out, even if the person that you're talking to doesn't want to hear what you're saying.
You have to let it out in the right way.
In the right way, yes. Definitely. And in those meetings, a lot of times it probably doesn't get let out in the right way. But I still think that players-only meetings are really valuable. Whatever works, just like my man Gothen is saying here. And by the way, I want to shout you out because I keep seeing you in the chat saying hit that like button. Thank you so much, bud. We really support or appreciate your support, so thank you for that. But yeah, player accountability, like he's saying, all of that stuff comes out of players-only meetings. And we talk a lot about leadership from the Kings or lack thereof. A players-only meeting is a big opportunity for somebody like De'Aaron Fox to really take a step forward, say what's on his mind, talk to everybody, kind of rally the troops around him. Yep. Again, whether it actually does anything or not, that remains to be seen. But if you don't have those meetings, maybe nothing change. There's more of a chance that something will change if you have those meetings than if you don't.
Yeah.
So I think that having a players-only meeting is usually a good thing.
One thing that I find weird is that Alvin Gentry missed this game due to testing positive for COVID. Bagley and Terrence Davis were both out due to COVID protocols. Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing they didn't test positive, but they were probably in close contact with maybe Coach Gentry or whatever. But they just had a players-only meeting where all these players were together in the same place. How is that not COVID protocols?
Yeah, it's a hard thing to
can't just cancel the whole game, right? I guess.
Yeah.
Huh?
I mean, if that's the rationale, then probably the whole season has to be suspended again, right? Because close contact, they just played games with all of these guys and. They're all hugging each other and high-fiving and stuff after the game and swapping jerseys. And so everybody's in close contact. I don't know how you actually make the official call on this stuff, but
weird world we live in. All right, moving on. So I saw an article by the Sacramento Bee claiming that the Kings have not engaged the Pacers in trade talks for Miles Turner or Domantas Sabonis. You and I love both of those players. I think we like Miles Turner a little bit better just because we feel like he fits this team a little bit better. Is this disappointing to you to hear that they haven't even engaged? They haven't even, discussed a potential trade? I don't really know what engaged means. You'd hope that they would at least call them and say, hey, who do you want? We want Miles Turner.
Yeah, I am disappointed. I think this is an opportunity here for the Kings. It's an opportunity for Monte McNair. And, it's kind of the same thing that we talked about with this players-only meeting. You can have the meeting, and whether or not they play better after it, that remains to be seen. You can engage in trade talks, and you might still not end up pulling off a deal, but you can't make the deal if you don't try, right? I feel like the Kings – Monte McNair should be calling them pretty much every day. I don't really understand what we're waiting for here.
Yeah, and it had been mentioned that the Kings were trying to trade Buddy Hield, trying to trade Marvin Bagley. When you hear about other guys that are available, you at least give them a call to see if you can work out a deal. I know Clutch Points posted a Sabonis to the Kings trade. Marvin Bagley, Buddy Hield, and a first-round pick for Domantas Sabonis. I like that move. How do you feel about that move?
Yeah, sign me up for that deal. Like I said, I would rather have Miles Turner because of, just the way he affects the game in totality, both defense and offense. But if I can get Sabonis for Buddy Hield, Marvin Bagley, and a first-rounder, I will definitely take that.
Gothen. It's Gothen.
Sorry, Gothen.
Think little skinny kids in black or clowns that rap, maybe.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. That I will remember for sure now. Gothen.
I think like Gotham, like Batman, Gothen.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah, okay. I think Sabonis would be awesome, but either of these guys, you got to make a call.
I'd be happy to have either one.
You got to make a call.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right?
I came up with an interesting trade deal. Bagley and Hield for Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward got paid by the Hornets.
He does have a very big price tag.
Kings need some wings.
But they need some wings. Savvy veteran, really good scorer.
Yeah.
Doesn't play a lot of defense.
I heard he's good at Twister.
But hey, he'll fit right in on this Kings team if he doesn't play a lot of defense. So, but no, it fills an area of need. Getting another wing and getting a reliable scoring option, second scoring option as well. So yeah, I wouldn't shake my head at that trade.
I don't know if you'd be able to play with the speed that this Kings team needs to play with, but I think he's an upgrade over both of those players.
Yeah.
And I think
good
he's
outside
a
shooter.
consistent
So
player.
a team that plays fast can get people like that a lot of open looks from three. I think he would take advantage of that.
Yeah, Victor said, would you take Tyrese and Harrison and an unprotected first for Jaylen Brown?
Absolutely.
Everyone loved Jaylen Brown.
Well, yeah, why wouldn't you? But look, I'm going to say it again. If Jaylen Brown is actually available, he's probably the number one best player that's available via trade in the entire league.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to take more than that to get him, in my opinion. It's going to take a lot more than that.
Isaiah Stewart for Tristan Thompson.
That's a pretty lateral move, I think. Isaiah Stewart and Tristan Thompson do a lot of the same things really, really well. Isaiah Stewart's a little younger. They might have him for more than a year if Tristan Thompson really is retiring next year. But I don't see either team getting that much better from that deal.
I want to talk a little bit more about this Gordon Hayward deal. Vinny, can you show my my screen here? So it works. It works on the NBA trade machine, whatever that means. But basically, Buddy Hield, Marvin Bagley for Gordon Hayward, straight up it works. You get 2 more years of Gordon Hayward. You get rid of the Marvin Bagley problem. You upgrade over Buddy Hield. I don't know if you really take into the wins on the bottom there. It's predicting the Kings are going to win 3 more games with this trade. I would guess it would probably be more than that.
Who are you starting? Is Harrison Barnes still starting?
Oh, I'm probably starting both of those guys. Yeah, I'm probably going to start Harrison at the 4. Yeah. But I mean, the reason I mentioned this trade is you look, they have Mikal Bridges, they have Kelly Oubre, the Hornets have a lot of pieces. You add a high upside guy in Marvin Bagley, who's got a chip on his shoulder at this point, and another volume shooter in Buddy Hield that is going to get open looks from Ball. I think this is a win-win for both teams.
Yeah, and the Hornets don't have a lot of big men now either. So,
yeah, I think this is a win-win for both teams. I love it if they could throw Kai Jones back to us in that deal. I like Kai Jones a lot.
Yeah.
There we go. Still 3 wins. All right, Vinny, you can cut it. Okay, moving on here. Let us know down below in the comments or in the chat how you feel about Gordon Hayward, if you feel like he would mesh on this Kings team.
That's funny.
I think Bagley and Hield are for sure out the window before the trade deadline. I think you could do a lot worse than a guy like Gordon Hayward. Okay, moving on. So, Zion Williamson. I read an article on him today talking about the reasons why the Pelicans should consider moving on from Zion. we talk about the Kings and their GM, Monty McNair, and his potential plan of stacking assets and trading for a big-name player, potentially a superstar or a guy with talent. Do you feel like Zion is still that guy? Should the Kings try and make a move for Zion? And what are you willing to give up for him?
Oh, wow. That's tough, man. I love Zion Williamson, but this past 6 or 7 months has got me a little worried about him. Big guys who struggle staying in shape.
Yep.
That continues for
Sacramento
a long time.
has to take a chance.
And this guy's only, 20, 21 years old, and he's already having these problems. And big guys who have foot problems with a lot of weight, that's a scary, scary scenario as well. I mean, they've already had to shut him down completely because his foot's not healing correctly. Mm-hmm. So that's one of those things that could turn bad real fast. But the potential with Zion Williamson is absolutely astronomical. So
it's a tough move.
Tough call.
The Kings have to do something.
Huge risk versus reward move.
The Kings have to do something. They have to. You don't get a talent like this or an option to get a talent like this. I don't even know if he's available. I'm just saying you don't get a shot at talent like this very often at all. And we talked about in the last podcast about having guys on your team that have an immediate impact and elevate your squad to where you don't get other good picks to surround them by talent. This could potentially be a situation where if you can trade for Zion and keep your pick this year, you're going to end up with potentially another top 5 pick going next season with Zion Williamson, a top 5 pick, whoever else you're able to salvage on this roster from that trade. You know, that could be a quick retooling or rebuild for the Kings.
It could. I imagine the price to get Zion is going to be pretty hefty. So it could be not as quick as you might think.
You could keep one of Mitchell, Haliburton, and Fox. I think you could keep one of those guys.
I don't think you're going to have to trade all 3 of them.
Potentially your pick and Zion going into next year.
I feel like they're going to want at least 1 draft pick.
Well, you don't have to give them this year's draft pick.
No, that's true. But you're talking about a quick retool here.
Yeah.
If you give up draft picks, I have a feeling it's going to cost multiple draft picks to get a guy like Zion Williamson. And you're going to have to give up definitely one of your top 3 players, maybe even 2. I'm not so sure. I just don't know that it would translate to automatically the Kings are a playoff team. I would love to have a guy like Zion Williamson if he's healthy. I would love to.
And he's got 2 years left on his deal. He's making $10 million on that rookie scale contract. I think it's a great buy low opportunity, whatever low is for a guy like Zion Williamson.
But I don't think the price is going to be that low. I really don't. Even if he's hurt. If you're New Orleans, you would be stupid to try to give him away for what I think would be an undervalued deal.
What about Fox and 2 first-round picks? Would you do that if you're the Pelicans?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, they have struggled to find a point guard ever since Drew Holiday left, so
they got a lot of options.
I don't know.
All right, moving on here. Speaking of another ex-Pelican, Lakers fans are calling for the team to trade Anthony Davis. I have no idea why.
Lakers fans are dumb.
They are dumb, and we all know that. I think they would be stupid to trade Anthony Davis. I think that's one of the dumbest things.
It would be one of the worst decisions I think any franchise has made.
If you're Monty and you hear that Anthony Davis is available, what are you willing to give up?
First off, when did everyone stop liking Anthony Davis? Everyone I talk to is like, Anthony Davis is trash. The guy sucks, blah, 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 all this stuff. I just don't understand it. Yeah, he's not having a good year shooting. But this guy is unbelievable. I mean, I would do unspeakable things to get somebody like that on my team. I don't understand why everyone hates him so much. What would I give up for him? I'd give up. There's no player on the Kings that I wouldn't trade for him. I'm sorry. There's just not a single one I wouldn't trade.
Yeah, but there's got to be a balance, right? Like, you can't give up everybody on the squad for him
of course, I'm not going to mortgage the entire future just for him.
So what are you willing? How much are you willing to give up?
I would give up De'Aaron Fox plus one other player and multiple draft picks for Anthony Davis. Absolutely.
I think that's a good deal.
Absolutely, I would.
Does that make the Lakers better?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they have Westbrook and Fox.
We talked about wanting to see that. Yeah.
I also hear the Lakers want to trade Westbrook.
I don't think the Kings should jump on that. I've been a big fan of Westbrook. I like Westbrook. I think he'd be great to bring to the Kings just for his attitude, but I'd much rather have Anthony Davis. Vinny, can you show my screen here? What do you think about this deal, Cal? Anthony Davis for Buddy Hield, Harrison Barnes, and a couple draft picks.
Oh, my God. That would be the steal of the century. Are you kidding me?
The Lakers have so many bigs. They wanted Buddy Hield. He can space the floor with Westbrook, LeBron. You fill in Harrison Barnes in there.
Yes. Absolutely, I would do that deal.
5 first-round picks.
Oh, is that included?
I don't know.
Oh.
How much are you willing to give up?
I'd definitely give up 2, maybe even a third.
Yep.
Yeah, probably 3. Yeah, I mean, dude, Anthony Davis, in my opinion, is one of the – he's definitely a top 10 player. And when he's shooting well, if he's hitting from outside, he's the top 5 player in the league.
Yep, I agree. I'd give up a lot of things for a guy like Anthony Davis. All right, I see some people talking about Zion here. Tyrese, Davion, and 2 to 3 first-round picks for Zion.
It makes you think. It really does. I don't know, man. It's so hard. I get so nervous trading for guys who are hurt.
Especially
I get so nervous.
Especially given all those future first-round picks and stuff like that. Because it could either go really good or really, really bad. We saw what happened with who was it, the Clippers, when they traded Baron Davis to the Cavs, and they gave up a first-round pick and ended up being the number 1 overall pick and turned into Kyrie Irving. Pretty wild. See some people saying they want Rudy Gobert. Good luck. I don't think the Jazz are interested in giving up Gobert.
I don't think the Jazz are interested in giving up anybody right now. They are on fire, and they've been one of the best teams in the league for the past 2 years. They're just a really well put together team.
Yep, I agree.
If I was them, I wouldn't mess with their chemistry at all. They've got all the pieces.
Yeah, and they got Conley for so cheap. Kristen, shout out. See you there. Gotta risk it to get the biscuit, she says. I think that's about Zion.
You're right about that.
I see Fox, Bagley, and 2 unprotected first-round picks for Anthony Davis.
I would do that.
Man, that's funny. Barnes needs to go ASAP. If it weren't for Fox, team would have been out of the game by the 3rd quarter. I mean, that's generally what you could say about your best player, right? Is that your team's out of it if you don't have your best player. Yeah,
but at the same time, you saw the one point in the game where the Kings actually built a lead. It was when Fox got somebody to help him, and that was Harrison Barnes. So
true. Michael says
I
broken.
agree. Harrison Barnes has got to play better consistently. He needs to regain that early season form. And I would be open to trading Harrison Barnes if I was, like I've said before, if I was getting a wing player that I felt like was a starting caliber 3 in return. I would be open to that. But I do love Harrison Barnes as a player. He really is a complete basketball player. Rebounding, defense, scoring, shooting. The guy can do a little bit of everything. So he's a very valuable piece to have on most teams.
Michael says AD is broken.
He's struggling shooting the ball. I guarantee you ask any GM in the league, would they want Anthony Davis on their team? Every single one of them says yes.
Yeah. I'm still tripping over this Zion Williamson thing. That's a tough question. It is really a tough question. I want to hear from you guys. How do you guys feel? Like Zion, the potential is so high, but how much are you willing to risk? And if you're a team like the Kings, you kind of have to take those risks sometimes because those guys aren't going. And speaking of which, what's going on with Page over there? Can you turn him around?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
We got to win tonight.
Page is watching Doug Christie.
That's funny. What were you saying?
What was I saying? Oh, we're all assuming here that Zion's actually, like, the Pelicans are thinking about trading him, which who knows? Maybe they have had conversations behind closed doors about that. But I would be pretty surprised to see the Pelicans trade him before he gets back to playing on the court. I think they still want to see him play. He had such an amazing year last year. So,
yeah, I think him and David Griffin have had issues, him in the front office.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what that means. You look at what happened with Anthony Davis, and they were like, okay, you already requested a trade. We're going to wait it out, and we're going to play you. How much do they play him? Like 10 minutes a game, 12 minutes a game, and then they take him out? I don't even understand that logic. Why do you play him? If you don't want him to get hurt, don't play him at all. Don't put him in there for like 10, 12 minutes and then pull him out. Like that's
I don't know. Part of it is you have to work your conditioning and your stamina and endurance back up, but man, I don't know.
Curry had injuries and came back from it to be awesome. Maybe Zion can do something.
Yeah,
similar.
Curry doesn't weigh 280 pounds though.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say Kevin Durant's tall. He had a foot problem, but he's a lot lighter. He doesn't have all that weight that he's pulling around. And it's weird. You look at the photos of Zion. Like I saw a photo where he was in good shape and one where he was in bad shape, and it's like, how do you tell what is right? Like, was he bloated one day? Is it an old picture? Is it a new picture? Like, it's so hard to tell.
Very hard. Very, very hard. Camera adds 10 pounds, too. Don't forget that.
Yeah. All right. Key Kings 8's asking about Jonathan Isaac.
Like Jonathan Isaac a lot. Another guy that's hurt and we haven't seen play in a while.
He's out for the whole year, right?
I believe so, yeah. I believe so.
Because I know he missed last season.
Missed all of last year, too.
Yeah.
It's been a long, long road back for him.
It'd be interesting,
But when he's healthy, he has everything that the Kings need.
Yes.
Long wing, great defender, offensive potential, athletic. I mean, he's checks a lot of boxes for them.
Yeah, and these guys that are injured, and you're trading for them injured, or they might miss a big chunk of time, is really such an interesting possibility because you could potentially trade for a good guy and get a good pick at the end of the year and then come back fresh next year.
Yeah.
That's kind of a weird way to tank, right? Is trade all your good guys for an even better guy who's injured, get your pick if you can hold on to this year's pick and move on with like something serious to build around. On that subject, I wanted to talk about tanking. I want to hear your guys' perspective on tanking. And, there's a lot of different ways to rebuild a franchise. There's rebuilding through the draft. There's rebuilding through free agency. There's rebuilding by trading. There's a lot of different ways. And I feel like there's not one set way to do it because so many different teams are in different positions. A team like the Lakers, you trade and sign big name guys. That's not something the Kings can do. So the Kings have to, I guess, weigh their different options. Now, everyone talks about tanking. They talk about getting good draft picks and stuff like that. I want to talk to you guys about, I want to give both perspectives on it. Vinny, can you show my screen here? I found a really cool article basically talking about what each draft spot in the lottery is worth. And they break down here, they talk about wins over replacement or WAR. And it talks about pick one, your 13.5. And you can see here the top, 4 or 5 picks, it only has a little bit of drop, and then it starts to drop a little bit more significantly. So if you're picking 6, 7, 8, you're almost half the player of what you'd be technically drafting at number 1. All these don't translate exactly, but they take a ton of data and they pile it all in here, and you can kind of get an average of what each of these guys look like. And if you look at the Kings front office, they are very analytically driven, so I'm sure they have their own models and stuff like this. Now, another one I want to show you is expected performance from these draft picks. Now, this is a little bit older article. This is taken from information from 2008 all the way back to 1989. And they talk about average picks. So pick number 1 overall has an average rating of 27. The average stats, you could take that however you want. But it gives you star potential, solid player, and role player potential. And you can look here and you can see, the top 4, 5 picks have really high potential to have a star. And then it drops off pretty significantly once you get into pick 6 and lower. The Kings, the way they've been trying to get better, but also make the playoffs every year, is they end up with this mid pick every time, and they don't pick much in the top. They got De'Aaron Fox high in the draft. They got Marvin Bagley high in the draft. Other than that, they've been in that 6 through like 11, 12 range. And so it's interesting looking at stuff like this and looking at these numbers and how, most of these players that we're drafting, they have a better chance to be either a solid player or a role player than they have a star. People talk about De'Aaron Fox and whether he can do all this by himself. Obviously, he can't do it by himself. There's not a lot of people that can. You need at least 2 or 3 guys to win a championship in this NBA. So when you're not able to add guys through free agency, you haven't been very successful trading for guys. It's all about the draft. So this kind of gives you an idea. You look at these numbers, you think, well, maybe I'm better off getting a higher draft pick. But the key is pairing that guy with a good guy that you already have. And unfortunately, having a guy like De'Aaron Fox or a healthy De'Aaron Fox doesn't allow you to be in this 1 through 5 range because he plays well enough to keep you in the hunt. All right, Vinny, you can get rid of that there. Okay, the other side of the coin I want to talk about, teams that have had success without high draft picks. The first one that I can say that pops out the most to me is the 2018-2019 Eastern Conference champs, who went on to become the NBA champs, and that was the Toronto Raptors. You look at this Toronto Raptors team, they have 0 top 5 picks on that squad. They had 0 lottery picks on that entire team, not one single lottery pick. Their best player was Kawhi Leonard, who was drafted number 15, not by their franchise, but they ended up trading for him. Kyle Lowry was selected 24 overall by another franchise as well. And Pascal Siakam was drafted number 27 overall. He was the only one that team drafted out of those 3 players. Then you go to look at Serge Ibaka, 24, Danny Green, 46, Marc Gasol, 48. These were all guys that they were able to pick up from other teams in trades or free agency, stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying the Kings and the Raptors are the same because obviously the teams are much different, but I think they're in similar situations as in they're not huge free agency destinations. You look at Norman Powell, Fred VanVleet, guys that were undrafted. Norman Powell was 46th pick. Fred VanVleet was undrafted. So these were guys that the Raptors saw something in, and they were able to capitalize on that. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you can look at the 2018-2019 Knicks. They had 6 lottery picks on that roster, and they finished with the worst record in the entire NBA. So just some numbers for you guys to look at, some things to think about, when you're talking about draft picks, whether the Kings need to tank, whether they not need to tank. Just because you have a high draft pick doesn't always mean you're going to get a better player. The odds show that you are, but then that doesn't mean that player is going to create wins for your team. And then also it's all about the combination of adding all these good players together. You got any thoughts or comments on that? I know that was a lot of information.
It's a lot of information, and it's just a really interesting debate. How do you view building your team? Is it trying to stock draft picks? Is it trying to go out? I'll play devil's advocate to what you just said about the Raptors a little bit. Yes, they're not known maybe for being a free agent destination, but they were able to land Kawhi Leonard as a free agent.
Yep.
And even though he was the 15th overall pick, at that point in his career,
they traded for Kawhi.
Sorry, they traded for him, which also allowed them to, I think, sign a couple other Marcus.
They traded for Gasol, traded for Kyle Lowry. I think it's mostly trades.
They made some good moves. But even though Kawhi Leonard was the 15th overall pick and nobody expected him to maybe be great, by the time he ended up in Toronto, he had already won Finals MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Tanking for me, it's just not the answer. Yes, odds show that the higher draft pick you get, the better chance you have of being a good player. But that's how it's supposed to work. There are plenty of guys that have burnt out of the league very, very quickly as top 4, even number 1 overall picks. I mean, everybody remembers Anthony Bennett. Plus, the biggest problem with tanking is your draft spot isn't guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
So you can lose all these games and put yourself in the position, the best or the worst record overall, to have the best chance of getting the number 1 pick and still not get it.
Yep.
So that's why I'm just not a fan of tanking in general.
Gotham,
it's a difficult.
They used DeRozan in that trade for Leonard, but he was the number 9th pick. So he's not even a top 5 guy.
No, not at all. But he was an all-star, I believe, or played at a really, really high level.
Yep.
Regardless of anything, the Raptors were so much farther ahead of where the Kings are now in that whole rebuild. Having Lowry and DeRozan turn them into a relevant team, which they then were able to flip for Kawhi Leonard, and the rest is history. They ended up winning.
Valanciunas was a number 5 overall pick. He was traded for Marc Gasol. But I honestly don't know if that made a big enough difference for them to win. I think they still would have won the East having Valanciunas, and seeing how much the guy has been flourishing lately. Yeah. You're almost kind of like, wow, they really gave up a lot in this guy.
Let's be real. They went that far because of Kawhi.
Yeah.
That's whoever else they had around them, maybe they don't win the finals, but they went as far as they did because they had Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah. I also looked up, statistics on worst drafting GMs, worst drafting teams. The Sacramento Kings were actually not the worst drafting team in the NBA over the last 10, 15 years. Weird enough, statistically, it was the Cleveland Cavaliers, which is weird considering they drafted guys like Kyrie Irving and LeBron James. But when you take a guy...
You have 2 number 1 picks, Andrew Wiggins and Anthony Bennett. Andrew Wiggins is playing great this year, but he took a long time to get going. Anthony Bennett was the total bust.
Yeah, he
bust.
brought their average down a lot. Makami says the Hawks used to suck for many years until they signed Joe Johnson to a big contract and traded for Mike Bibby. Yep. I mean, it's a formula. Sometimes it's drafting, sometimes it's signing, sometimes it's a combination, sometimes it's trading. It takes a little bit of luck. You look at the Warriors franchise, the dynasty that they created.
Luck is always one of the major factors.
Yes. You look at the Warriors dynasty that they created, you say, wow, that team drafted really well. However, they didn't really turn into a dynasty in my mind until they got Kevin Durant. And the only way that they were able to get Kevin Durant is because you could say they were lucky enough that Curry was injured early on in his career, and he signed a 4-year, like $44 million contract, and Klay Thompson's deal was up at the same time, so they were able to sign him and re-sign Klay Thompson. And then Boogie was injured, and, not that he did much for them, but I'm just saying.
Let's not forget, Andre Iguodala won a Finals MVP for them.
Yes, after he said he was going to sign with the Kings.
Yeah. So yes, they drafted really, really well. But if you're going to be one of the best teams in the league, you have to put the whole package together. You can't just draft well. You can't just sign a big free agent. You can't just hire a good coach. It has to be all of that stuff together. Yep. You have to develop your young players. You have to sign a veteran that's going to make a key difference for you in one or multiple areas. It's the whole picture. It's not one of these things. It's all of them built together.
Any other guys you want to mention in the league you'd like the Kings to make a move for?
Well, I saw a lot of people mention OG Anunoby in the chat. I would love to have him. Again, just like Jonathan Isaac, checks a ton of boxes. Wing, young player, developing his game. He hasn't played a ton this year, but he was off to a really hot start. Great defender. If he brings his offensive game along with that, he could be a real big-time two-way player in the league. He'd be a great fit, I think.
Is he going to move the needle for them?
Maybe not right away, but again, he's young, and there's potential, for him to continue to get better with alongside somebody like De'Aaron Fox. That could be something that it might take a couple of years to develop, but I think bottom line is the Kings need to target somebody that's going to make an immediate change defensively. Mm-hmm. That's my biggest thing. And he would do that today if they had him.
Yeah, Goffin says development seems to be lacking a bit here, which is crazy considering the Kings have one of the best developmental coaches in the league, Enrico Hines. Players love him. They want to be around him. And he's in Sacramento as assistant coach on the bench.
Yeah.
And, yeah. I don't know if it's developmental coaching that's the problem or if it's maybe the developmental system or not putting confidence in these young players. Obviously, all the drama that's surrounding Marvin Bagley has not helped his development.
Yeah.
And, a lot of it is his fault or his dad's fault or his family's fault, but there's a lot of it that falls on the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah. Well, and to kind of take that a little bit further, development is an incredibly important part, like I just said, and you can develop really well individual players, but if the team together doesn't fit well or the system for that team isn't the right system to run,
yep.
Even if you're developing your players, if you don't, it's a team game. So if you're not playing the right way or if your team's not constructed the right way in order to win, then you're just going to continue to struggle anyway.
Key Kings is asking about Jonathan Kuminga.
Love him.
I know you're a huge fan
of
him.
Kuminga. Warriors aren't going to give him up.
How are you feeling about James Wiseman? Do you think he's a realistic target?
I really don't know. I really don't know. The Warriors are playing with house money, man. I mean, they could move any of these young guys. They could move none of them. So I don't know if they would be available, what it would take to get them. Mm-hmm. I really don't.
Yeah, consistency is very important, but it has to be throughout. You have to have consistency in the front office. You have to have consistency in the coaching staff. You have to have consistency in the way that everybody approaches the game. But as far as players go, that's the difference between a good player and a great player is consistency. All these guys are in the NBA for a reason. They've all been probably the best player on most of their teams their entire life. Any of these guys could go for 20 or 30 points in a night, but consistency is the main difference between a good NBA player and a great NBA player because there's not a lot of guys in this league that can do it every night. And that's what the Kings are missing, is they have maybe one guy that can do it every night, if that.
Yeah.
And he needs help.
They're consistently inconsistent.
And he needs help. Oh, people are talking about Ben Simmons again. You have any updates on Ben Simmons?
I have no update.
This just in. Ben Simmons switched cell phone providers. Now he keeps it in his right pocket during practice, not his left pocket. That's all we really have to say about it. I like Ben Simmons. I just, the longer this goes on, the less confidence I have in him or anything, really. And, I was thinking about it today. you look at Monty. Monty's mentor is the one that's part of this whole Ben Simmons saga. Yeah. So if he's like, oh, I'm just benching a coach, or benching a player, whatever, I don't need him. Sixers are still playing pretty well. The Kings can't afford to do that. But if this is the guy that he learned from, or he is learning from, it makes me very afraid that one of these situations with a Bagley or a Hield could end up not good for the Kings.
Yeah.
And you could end up getting nothing for some of those guys. Nothing at all. System as a whole. San Antonio, Utah, LA. You know what's expected of you.
Yeah. I would add Miami into that.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, you might even add Dallas in there too.
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
Boston.
I'm really surprised they moved on from Rick Carlisle. But you gotta make Doncic happy, I guess.
Yeah.
I remember Rondo really pissed off Carlisle, and he's like, "You're out." He didn't want to play. He didn't want him joining the team for the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. Then Rondo comes to the Kings and balls out. I loved watching him and Boogie together, man. It was so exciting. I love me some Rondo. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to take another look at the Kings' next game of basketball with Kings Crusade.